Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of It's Needed, the podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I am joined by the one and only light-skinned wonder, Mr. Oh No, It's the Popo. Oh, what up, AJ?
Slow motion, brother. Slow motion. How about you?
Yeah, that little 5 o'clock shadow looks slow motion too. You got there.
Yeah, well, you know I got Saturday, Sunday off. So when Sunday roll around, I'm looking a little rough.
You got that.
Somebody did not have Sunday off this week, though.
You know what? We're gonna get into the Sunday work today because it was not. Let me say the least. It was nonsense to say the least. So we're gonna talk about that as current events.
Okay. Bet.
And we are joined today by a special guest. I like to consider her like family. They kind of actually helped me get into the profession of law enforcement. Mrs. Shelisa Williams. What's up, Mrs. Williams?
Woo-hoo, yay.
Now, let me say something. Matter of fact, let me re-preface that because I can't just say Shelisa Williams. Lieutenant Shelisa Williams. You got to throw that out there. You know, you got to don't let me get no type of promotion because I'm like, you better address me as chief. Yeah, lieutenant. So it's lieutenant to you.
So should I be like saluting her right now or like?
And
I'm out of pocket right now.
And she is a veteran, Air Force, right?
Yes, sir.
She's an Air Force veteran. So we got the A-team on today. I say the least.
Killing it.
We got the A-team.
Killing it.
So hey, what's going on your end, AJ?
Man, I can't call it. It's a slow Sunday. You know, I got my little shadow going on. Hey, if there's one thing I hate doing, it's shaving. So when it's my day off and I don't got nothing going on, I will not shave. Like, I hate it. So y'all going to deal with this
Can you
today.
grow a full beard or no?
I can, but I got this like little patch right here that don't grow. So like I try not to grow it, man.
See the way my beard is set up.
Yeah, I could probably line it up along like my jawline there, but then somebody will roast me, and I ain't trying to deal with all that, man.
Looking like
what's going on with you,
like
brother?
Poppy Suave or something. You know, I can't grow a full beard. I get all patchy and stuff like that. I grow like the little goatee, but my wife is like, you better cut that, my brother. That is not working for you. So
yeah.
No, I'm good, man. I'm chilling.
Now, can you have it at work?
Huh? Nah.
Can you have it at work?
No, we can't do it. Only no shave Novembers, but our station only allows us to do mustaches, which even makes you look like a real creep. Like, I don't know, like I can't pull off the stash.
Yeah, no.
That makes you look like creep.
Me
Like,
neither.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah. I hope not. Could you imagine? Like, yo, what's up?
Good answer.
Yo, what's up?
You know I pulled you over today.
Oh man, so I know you guys back east. You guys can grow the beards out and everything, huh? If you wanted to.
No, not. I mean, there are departments that can, but not ours. That is a no-go.
Well, that
like,
makes
you can
sense.
have a mustache. That's about it.
Well, you guys do got the Colonel Sanders uniforms.
You know, hey, word on the street is we might be changing those soon.
That's
So
true.
I'm in the roasted type mood today.
Sorry, but he's kind of right.
Oh my
what's
goodness.
going on with you, man?
I'm doing good. Just been busy. It's been I think so. All of our listeners out there, this was the first time I think we've ever not done a podcast in 2 weeks, and that's because we got some big news, some really big news to announce.
Big news.
The reason we took a week off, which is not common by us, is because the Savage and Mrs. Savage gave birth to Savage Jr. a week and a half ago. So so baby Savage in the building.
Congrats.
My man came out with some headphones and a video camera. Was like, I'm ready to go.
Nice.
So I heard
it came out walking. Like skipped the whole crawling stage. Just came out walking. Like, I'm ready to go.
Stocky.
Let's go to work.
He got his good looks from his mom. I'll say that. I'm glad he didn't get his looks from his daddy. So we skipped the podcast last week so that way the Savage can enjoy time with his baby. God knows if me and AJ were left to do this podcast on our own, we'd probably be burning some stuff down and set us back about a whole year. So you know, we didn't do that.
What is this bootleg podcast? What is this?
So we are officially back. But, I do want to give a shout out to all of our listeners and viewers because I didn't realize how much people really enjoy listening to this podcast until we didn't do an episode. Like, we had people hitting us up like, hey, where you guys at? Like, what's going on? Yeah. People were like, hey, I'm binge listening to your podcast. We had people say, hey, I love you, motivated me. We actually had a cool story last week. A guy had hit me up and said that he was listening to an episode that we did on suicide, and he had never heard of the podcast. He listened to the episode of suicide prevention. Long story short, he goes out on patrol, comes in contact with a car who looked like the driver was giving a distress signal, so he pulled it over. And then he gets the male and female out of the back seat, and I guess it was an Uber, and he thought it was a domestic violence. It wasn't. What it was a female was feeling suicidal. She felt like she didn't want to live anymore. Her boyfriend was like, "Hey, no, I don't want this to happen. Like, you need to live." And the officer that was listening to our podcast had just gotten listening to that podcast, and he said it was so weird, but I just led with the words "you matter." And at first she was like,
Wow.
"Huh?" And he was like, "You matter," because that's what we had said on that podcast was, "Hey, you matter." And it said this when he said it the second time, she immediately realized what he meant, and he was like, "Man, I was just talking and didn't even realize what I was saying to her." But by the end of the conversation, you know, she's crying, I'm tearing up, and she just felt way better. And so to think that a podcast that's recorded, you know, AJ in Columbus, me in Southern California, can reach people across the world and reach them in places and matters that we don't even realize is phenomenal. So shout out to all of our followers, because you guys really give me and AJ and Mrs. Williams the encouragement to keep doing what we do and keep pushing, because we really know and truly realize that what we're doing really matters and is needed, hence the name It's Needed. So
Yeah, absolutely. And always share that stuff. Like if you are encouraged or motivated by one of our episodes or something one of us said, reach out to us and let us know, because that is motivation and encouragement for us to keep doing what we're doing as well.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, Miss Williams, what's going on with you? Thank you for being on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I had to hunt her down. I had to hunt you down because, you know, the Williamses be traveling across the world. You know, I'm like, hey, can I try to sneak in their suitcase?
No, I know, huh?
Just so I can go see France. Every time I call them, every time I call them, like, where you guys at? Y'all in Spain? Y'all in, you know, Brazil? They in Africa on a safari? Like, I'm like, dang.
You're just trying to just live life.
Trying to keep up with the
the Williamses, huh?
Yeah, the Williamses. Keeping up with the Williamses. So tell us what's going on with you. Tell us a little bit about you, Ms. Williams, and you know, let all of our listeners know who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, let's start with, I guess, what has made me be the woman that I am today, and it would be my Midwest upbringing. I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah, Midwest.
Go Green Bay.
Oh Lord, no, we're not talking. We're not bringing no green and yellow up. No, we're not bringing green and yellow up. If it ain't red and gold, we ain't talking about it.
But
I was on your team until you said that.
But yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, I joined the military, which actually brought me to California, and met my husband there, and he's from LA. So
whoa. LA, y'all.
Yeah, and the weird thing is I did try to get him to move back to Wisconsin, but he I guess couldn't appreciate
Derek
the
would not
winters.
survive in LA.
That exactly. But needless to say, I decided to, you know, stay in California, and so he became a police officer. And what's unique about that is that when he told me he wanted to be a police officer, I told him, "Oh no, you are not going to be a police officer." I didn't know anything about it. He applied with Compton PD.
Oh,
me
wow.
being from Wisconsin, all I knew about Compton is what I saw on
City
TV.
of Compton.
So it really frightened me to have him be a police officer. But you know, it worked out well for him. We moved to the Inland Empire, and then I got a job working with the sheriff's department as a payroll clerk.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's where I got my start. And then funny story is some of the officers would come in and try to be rude to me. And, you know, I've always had the same personality that I've always had since I was a child. So, but yeah, so I kind of gave it back to them. And then they were like, "Hey, you ever thought about being a deputy?" And I was like, "No, you know, there's no way I would be one, because I didn't want my husband to be one. So no, I'm good sitting behind this desk." And they were like, "Well, it's double the pay." And I was like, "Oh, well, then I can do that."
We talking dollar bills, y'all.
Exactly.
Sign me up.
So for me, it wasn't a calling that I've always had as a young child. And then with the with the sheriff's department, you know, you start off in corrections, and I figured, okay, I'm bossy anyway, so I know how to tell people what to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what you do. Yeah, put that cheeseburger down. I ain't playing with you.
So for me, the transition was natural, you know, with me having experience in the military, and then having my husband, who was my, you know, main support system, join the sheriff's department, transition from corrections, and then went to patrol. Now, my trip to patrol was a little bit delayed simply because I had, smaller kids. I'm still old school where I feel, I need to take care of my husband and my children and, still have my job. But my definition for me are, raising my children to be, respectable adults. So I stayed in the jails longer than the typical deputy would have. But then my transition to patrol came, it was actually from a negative aspect. It was a deputy that kind of was a little rude to me. And I just felt, okay, there's no way I want this person to be my boss. So in order for this to occur, I knew I had to go to patrol because through patrol, that's where you get your promotions from, just in case people don't know that. So went home, talked to my husband and said, hey, are you okay with me going to patrol? Because it's, different when you have your wife being, on patrol and having to deal with the things that he's dealt with. And, I'm not just his wife, but I'm also a female. People are going to see me first as a female. And they typically see the uniform last, as far as, that's just my view as being a female working in law enforcement. So, went to patrol, got promoted from there, worked at our academy, then got promoted from there, did backgrounds and, got promoted once again, and so now I'm doing my little gig. And
not a little gig, an important gig.
I was about to say.
She is
I was
so
about
modest.
to say she trying to play it off.
She is.
I got this little gig, Lieutenant.
Yeah, I got some weight on my collars. So she is super modest, and one of the things that I've always appreciated, like, Lieutenant Williams and her husband, like I call them a power couple. And we'll get into this more later, but you inspire me and your husband inspire me because you are, I call you a double minority, meaning not only are you black, but you're a female, and it's in my personal opinion, you're going to face obstacles from double sides of things. And so for you to move up and mind you, how many employees are working with the sheriff's department?
we have a little over 1,800 sworn.
So you, in the size of that department, 1,800 sworn, to work your way up to where you're, and you're not done yet. I know you're not done. I know you're not done. It's mind-boggling to me. So. And I know we didn't mention it, but your husband's a chief of police at another agency locally.
Yes.
And so that's why I call him a power
they're
couple.
killing it.
Oh yeah, man. And so just funny story. I talked about how I didn't want to get into law enforcement. I talked about it before. Well, I remember your husband was one of those guys that was like, hey, you need to get into law enforcement. He's like a master recruiter, and I kept telling him no. And so, but it's funny that I sit here now, 6-7 years later, and we get to have this conversation and really be a conversation that's focused on how do we transition and improve our profession. And like I've said it before and I'll say it again, like I am so committed to changing the face of modern day policing. And so the people on this podcast are committed to the same exact thing. And so, we only want to bring the best people on here. And so we're going to get into more of your story and how you got to where you're at, because you definitely, I'm sure you faced adversity throughout the way. And those are some of the things that I want to speak to today. So before we do that though, it wouldn't be the podcast if we did not discuss the Officer Down Memorial. So I can't remember where we were at last time when we did the Officer Down Memorial page, but I'm looking at it right now and it says we have currently lost 66 officers in the line of duty. And so I don't know, like I said, I can't remember where we were 2 weeks ago, but I can tell you 66 is a lot. I mean, and the way some of these officers have died recently has been crazy. Like just ridiculous, like, ambushes, car accidents. I mean, let's see where we're at. I mean, it has us at 27 officers have lost their lives by gunfire, 24 auto-related, and then 15 others. So, unfortunately, that's a reality of our job, and every single one of us realizes that reality. And so I do want to send our condolences to the families of those that lost their life. transitioning. So what I want to talk about before we get into Mrs. Williams' story and you know, giving you guys motivation for as female officers or just minorities in general, or actually officers in general, I really want to get into what we've been doing recently on our page, on Breaking Barriers United page, is doing breakdowns of videos. So I didn't realize how it's kind of by a sheer whim that we actually started doing that. I can't even remember what video it was, but I just gave my 2 cents about it, and then it kind of just took off. People like really love the breakdowns. But some comments have come up throughout those breakdowns, and I don't really respond to the comment section because if I leave one comment, then I better be prepared to sit there for like ages and just keep going back and forth, like hours and hours and hours. And I just don't have time to do that. I literally just do not have time to do that. So, and I have to recognize that there's trolls on the internet. But some of the comments that came through to me were just, you know, if you ask me, ridiculous. And here's why. When I give these breakdowns, I've recognized that the average person that is not a police officer does not understand policies, case law, or tactics like we do. And I recognize that because before we were all police officers, I didn't understand it. So I've said it before, and I will say this again, is that when you are a civilian, you have no experience in law enforcement. If you watch a video, and let's say it's a 30-second clip of like a shooting, if you're a civilian and don't know anything about law enforcement, you are watching that video from an emotional state of mind, point blank.
Right.
You're basing your opinions just based on pure emotions. And I can't fault you for that because nobody has trained you to do anything else. And so some of the comments that we got back from some of those videos were, you are highlighting some of the obvious facts. You're only highlighting obvious police shootings, or you're only highlighting obvious uses of force, where, well, that's not obvious for many people that watch these videos. Quite frankly, people have reached out to me and asked me to do a debrief on these videos. So, you know, Lieutenant Williams, what are some of your takes? Because you've seen some of our videos. Do you think that do you think these videos are more beneficial or detrimental for our profession and civilians as we break them down?
Actually, I think they are insightful, simply because, I mean, I'm in law enforcement, and when I listen to your podcast and the breakdown, I go, oh yeah, like, yeah, that's right. Like it's actually impactful, and you know, even though you may have some naysayers, just keep doing what you're doing because you're actually helping the community and you're helping officers, and even though they're familiar with it, but to hear it from someone else actually break down frame by frame, it'll actually assist them when they get into a use of force. And I say when simply because, you know, the odds are, you know, you're going to get into some type of use of force throughout your career anyway. So, you know, you just keep doing you. And
so you mentioned something earlier to me before we got on today about the transparency piece. Can you speak to that a little bit more, as far as, because you've been in, how long have you been in law enforcement now? 25
years.
So you've been in law enforcement for 25 years.
Nice.
I mean, that's impressive. I mean, and for those of you guys that don't know, in order for you to get to like a 25, 35 or 30 year career in law enforcement, that's kind of rare. I mean, a lot of people do not make it that long in a career because they either retire because of injuries, they retire on stress leave, they retire just because they find, you know, something else. They're tired of putting their life on the line. So when you make it that long, one, you've seen a lot, two, you've seen a lot of things change, and three, your outlook starts to change. And so you had mentioned something about these videos and the transparency and why it's important for officers to, you know, give and lead with transparency. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I just feel that we're in a new age now where it's just imperative for officers just to be honest with the facts of what's happening. And what's difficult is that the public doesn't realize that sometimes we can't say or give the information or give 100%, you know, right away. And when you're unable to do that, then there's always this speculation that we're hiding something when that's not, you know, the truth, because officers have rights, you know, and we have to go down that path to make sure that they're protected as well as the public. And so, but it's a new age, you know. I deal with legislation, and a lot of the legislation is built around transparency. And so hiding behind the badge will, you know, or so-called, put the quotes, hiding behind the badge, is something that's just in the past. And it's just, something that, if you're not used to it, it can be a difficult transition. But if you're always honest with yourself, the transition is actually quite easy. Because if you're, for me, it's always been easy because I've always almost been too transparent, meaning that when I'm on patrol, I'll tell people, okay, look, I see that marijuana and you're going to have to go to jail for that. And then, they panic and take off and run. And if I'd have just been slick about it and just, kind of just,
slide them hooks on,
held my card, I wouldn't have to chase people or,
Right.
So, so I say that is that transparency it's just a positive time that police officers have to learn to deal with nowadays.
I agree. And so I want to kind of piggyback to you now, AJ, because you recently went through a use of force situation, and I actually did a breakdown to your video. So tell me we had a discussion about this. Tell me on the opposite end, do you appreciate a breakdown of something like that when you're kind of like, because, obviously we're friends, but let's say I didn't know you and I did a breakdown, from just our perspective of another officer. Do you appreciate a breakdown like that? Or do you, kind of say, no, I don't want you to do a breakdown like that? Tell me what your thoughts were on that situation.
I'll tell you what, the breakdown that you did and the breakdown that other individuals did on my incident relieved so much stress on my end, just because, like the lieutenant said, like there's so many times where you want to get on social media and say what really happened or what you've seen or what the investigation found, but you can't because it's an open investigation. So I appreciate them. There were a couple breakdowns, including the one that you did, that my coworkers were coming up to me talking about, like, man, like I wish our department would just do this. Like I wish our department would grab these videos and break them down like this. And the sad reality is they can't, whether that's by choice or whether it's, whatever. They mean the world to me, man. And I've witnessed it firsthand.
And that makes me feel good. And so the reason I wanted to bring up both of your viewpoints on that is because it's been historic or traditional where we as officers always talk about that phrase, Monday morning quarterback. And there's a negative stigma around Monday morning quarterbacking. And the negative stigma is when we start to talk about another officer's actions, officers will take it more as a negative critique, and you don't know because you weren't in that situation, so you shouldn't comment. Now, I understand that to an extent because there are certain things that nobody else understands. You will not know what my mindset was. You don't know what I was thinking of. And so therefore, because you don't know those things, don't speak on it. And I get that. I understand that. And I remember I kind of equated to when I played quarterback and we would get the brakes beat off of us in football. Like, people would be like, how come you didn't throw it to the guy on the left side of the field? He was wide open. And I'm like, well, you didn't just see this big old Samoan dude in my face on the right side and I can't see. So, it's easy for everybody to talk. It's easy for everybody to talk when you weren't out there at that quarterback. So I understand it to an extent. But like you said, Lieutenant, like we live in a different day and age where transparency is key. And so when I do these breakdowns, I'm not doing these breakdowns to say, hey, look, I'm criticizing these officers for what they did. Now, I will say if an officer is completely wrong and out of line, I'm going to call a spade a spade. It is what it is. Absolutely. I can't sit here and hide, like you said, behind that badge and say, oh, no, like, this officer, who knows? Like, no, I got to call a spade a spade. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think you said it before, AJ, is like, the thing that we have, and I didn't realize the value of it until this situation happened with you, AJ, is we have a platform to go on and talk and defend ourselves. Like, what about those officers and civilians that don't have that platform? And I say both officers and civilians because there's some civilians that have been done wrong by police officers but don't have a platform to share that on. And if they do try to find a platform to share it on, it's on all the wrong platforms. Right. And so that's what my goal is to have an unbiased platform where you can come out. I'm going to share, whether something was right or wrong and how we can improve from it. And hopefully, our audience takes it as, okay, this is an authentic, trustworthy, debrief on it. And if I make a mistake, I'm not afraid to say, hey, look, this happened a little differently, and because of that, so we're actually going to debrief. Mrs. Williams was actually showing me a video today that we're going to debrief shortly, which is crazy. And it was a negative incident that happened with a police officer, which is crazy to me. So I mean, yeah, I don't even want to get into it right now. Just follow our Instagram page and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the last thing I wanted to say was one of the comments that came up in another video we just did was there was a military guy that said that the rules of engagement in the battlefield of war are a lot stricter than what's placed on officers when we're actually in the field doing our day job. And I do disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is because, you know, it's very easy to say that, you know, you should do A, B, C, and D when a guy is running at you with a knife. Use a beanbag, use a taser, use all these other less lethal options. And yeah, those are options that, you know, if we have them, let's use them. But we can't sit here and say, oh, no, you guys should have shot him in the leg, shot him in the arm before you try to shoot him. And the funny thing about that video that I'm talking about is if you guys didn't realize, the guy was shot a few times and got back up and then grabbed the officer and put him in like some type of chokehold and started going for his gun. So we had people saying like, well, how come they didn't have to kill this guy? And I'm like, or how come you didn't use rubber bullets, or how come you didn't use a taser? Well, obviously, if bullets didn't work on this guy, what makes you think that the taser or rubber bullets would have worked on him? You know, last I checked, a gun is probably, you know, absolutely. It should be sufficient enough to stop somebody. It wasn't. And so, you know, I just caution people when you make a comment, you know, don't make a comment just because you want to, you know, just start a conversation with people just for no reason, like just because you want to troll. And like really think about the comments that you make before you make them. Now, is that a reality? Is everybody going to do that? No, I'm a realist, but it's just kind of mind-boggling to me that people will make certain comments like that. So I see you over there taking notes.
Yes, I do. I want to make a comment.
I want to hear what you got.
Yeah. So with the guy that talks about the rules of engagement, so a war would indicate that you have an enemy. So I don't like, or I disagree with him comparing law enforcement, you know, as far as having to, you know, follow the rules of engagement of war. We don't have enemies. We're really just trying to, you know, assist the public. We are public servants. So for him to say that we're at war, I would disagree with that, because it automatically makes you think of that we have an enemy that we're fighting, and that's not the case.
That's good.
I love that. It automatically puts this negative stigma out there that we're just out there, it's us against you. And that's why BBU exists, is because we're trying to eliminate the us versus you.
Right.
You know, Sir Robert Peel said it the best. He said, the police are the public and the public are the police. And that statement sums it up best, because that means that even though I'm a police officer in my day job out there patrolling the streets, don't forget I'm still a regular civilian as well. So I have to, you know, live and abide by the same standards as you do.
Absolutely.
Now don't get me wrong, there's been officers that have taken advantage of that in many different ways. But again, you got to realize, like, there's other professions where this occur. Like, oh, it was so funny today, and I this is probably so irrelevant, but I told y'all I worked today, and it was so funny. You know how you just find somebody, like, you know, somebody's just like looking around, and then you like go to talk to them, and like as soon as you go to talk to them, that like they were just waiting for that entry because they were hoping you were going to talk to them. Well, that's what happened today. Like there was this homeless guy, and he was just pacing back and forth, and so I just said, "Hey, what up, my man? How you doing, bro?" And like he was like, "Oh yes," like it's like double dutch. He's like, "Oh yes, I'm in there now." So my man just started going like,
gotcha.
"Oh, gotcha." And I'm like, I can't even get a word in. And so he was like, you know, I'm a good dude, man, but I've been arrested. You know, I've been arrested for assault on a police officer. You know, theft, vandalism, this, that. But I'm a good dude, man. That's all in my past. He was like, I'm pretty good now. But, you know, last year, I will say one thing I do is like, I don't usually go into no stores and commit no thefts or nothing like that. That's just not my mantra. But every now and again, I'll go into McDonald's and I'll get me a little water cup, but I'll put a little bit of soda in it. And my man was giving.
So does Ryan. Ryan, the same thing.
Thank you for being honest.
Yeah, thank you. He was like, but that's to the extent. So I don't even know why I got to that. I don't even know how I ended up there. But
hey, Ryan, the type of dude to go to Chipotle instead of the hot sauce. I've seen him do it, y'all. Don't let him fool you.
Hey, real talk. I've been looking around like, hey, man, they don't need this. They got more Tabasco sauce in the back. That green salsa. Yeah. Oh, man. So, yeah. But my point is, I don't even know what my point was. It was just today was a long day. Let me say that. I was dealing with it just because I know y'all like to hear police stories.
Yes.
I went to a call in the park for this female today. I usually don't work on Sundays, but I'm there. It's hot. It's 100 degrees outside. I'm trying to get to my breakfast burrito. It's in the car. It's in a tortilla. So, if it sits long, then your tortilla is going to start getting all soggy and stuff. And so I'm thinking about my tortilla as I'm dealing with this girl. And I'm hoping, like, are we going to be able to solve this quick or no? So I get there. She's tripping, like, she is tripping hard. She's definitely under the influence of alcohol. And so, I go to put handcuffs on her and she just loses her mind. I'm like, ma'am, please stop resisting. And it's funny because it's at a park, so all these people are over there looking at us like, oh, what's going on? Exactly.
Cameras come out.
Exactly. Cameras coming out. People like, what is going on? Exactly. So, we end up handcuffing her. We had to throw her to the ground and stuff like that, have my knee on her because we had to put a hobble on her feet because she was just kicking and everything. So they do an area canvas at the end of it and they're like, we go ask people like, so if you guys aren't familiar, at least for us in Southern California, if you use forest, we'll go do an area canvas to see if anybody saw anything because we want to make sure like, hey, we're not here to, it's not us versus you like we talked about. So we want to make sure we get some unbiased statements. And it's so funny. The public were like, those officers were so professional. They had so much restraint and this and that. So it was just funny, man. But it was a long day out. That girl made me hot. So anyways, I digress.
Ryan salty. You had to work on a Sunday.
I am salty, bro. Literally, bro. I was sweating. I taste like salt right now.
Oh, listen, Toy. Something that I thought of when you made a comment about the military personnel making that comment about or the statement as far as like rules of engagement and whatnot is a lot of times what I've experienced when you're expressing or addressing issues, right, whether they're police issues, racial issues, or whatever, is you'll have a pocket of people who have the "what about me" syndrome, right? So like if you're addressing police issues, then you'll have civilians like, well, what about me? Like, well, I have these issues too, which is great, but that doesn't take away the validity of what we're going through and the issue that I'm expressing. And it's on both sides, right? Like there are civilians who express issues, right? Like, hey, I feel like I'm targeted because X, Y, and Z. And then you have police officers who go, well, we get targeted too. And it's like, you don't always have to have your guard up and have this "what about me" complex. Like you can open your ears and listen to these issues. And if you resolve that issue, it might resolve yours also, right? And it's something I run into a lot. And Lieutenant, you might run into this as well, being, what Ryan said, a double minority, because you have to overcome twice as many obstacles. One, because you're a woman of color, and two, because you're a female, right? So do you run into this a lot, like throughout your career? 25 years is a long time, right?
Yeah, it's kind of long.
It's a good thing though.
Yeah, but I guess it's I don't know. For me, I've always maintained being a female. Like I don't try to hide that at all. And I've had females who have asked me, well, what do you do, when you're on patrol and you come across, big guys or whatever. And I said, I'm transparent with them. We ain't boxing.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you know, dog.
I'm gonna let you know right now.
I heard that.
You're still a man and I'm still a woman. And my department provided me with a lot of tools on this belt. So I am when I was on patrol, I would just let them know. Absolutely. Like, okay. And plus I would say, hey, wouldn't you rather be arrested by somebody like me instead of, one of my male, counterparts, so I use what, God gave me. And that was my ability to, to gab. My husband may not agree with that, but, but and I don't even know if that answered your question or not. Am I on the wrong path?
So no. So hold that thought because you bring something up that's good, and I want to talk about it. So I'm going to ask a rhetorical question, and some of our viewers will eat me up like last time when I asked a rhetorical question. They're like, "Is he seriously asking a question like that?" But again, there are people that need to know that don't understand the way we do police policies and things like that. So my rhetorical question for you, and I would love for you to answer this question because our people need to know that. Would you say that the level of force that you use on, let's say, a male could be different than the level of force that I would use or AJ would use, just based on you being, and let's say it's a bigger guy? Like, could that go into your decision making on why you chose to use a level of force as opposed to me? Like, would I use different force than you would potentially?
Yeah, I could see that happening simply because you know your strengths as a man. I know my strengths as a female, and we are genetically made differently. You're naturally going to be stronger than me. So you may have a little bit more patience, or you could react the opposite way, just, depending on the situation. But because of my stature, I just feel that women in general will tend to talk a lot more versus, act. And I'm not saying that you guys, let your ego get in the way, but sometimes
we do sometimes.
But
you ain't gonna be talking to me like that.
Yes.
I don't know who you think you are.
But sometimes with male officers, it can rise to the level of ego. Whereas that's already dismissed when you have a female there, because we're not trying to get on the same level as the man. We're just trying to, be safe and get home safe. Not saying that you're not trying to do that, but we would use other methods that would almost prevent us from having to get into a fist-to-fist fight with you, because chances are you're going to outpower me. And so women will tend to, at least in my opinion, will tend to talk a little bit more, try to, convince them, and, use a lot of antidotes.
Now, let me ask you this. Playing devil's advocate, do you think that it's possible that women will also resort to maybe using some of the tools on their belt quicker than an officer if, say that talking is not working?
Yes, I would say so. And I'll give you an example. So I was on patrol, and I guess you said your viewers like stories. So
they like to hear the stories.
Here's an anecdote.
AJ had a story where he got peed on him. So but we'll talk about it. Episode 2, y'all. Episode 2. Check it out.
And so I like to relate the story simply because I know if I were a man in that position, that the outcome would have been the same, but a man would have gotten there quicker than I did. So example, I go on patrol, get a call of a guy who's been drinking. He's trying to get into the wrong apartment. Go up there, I'm by myself, just the two of us. He's, just completely, out of his mind. And a little bit combative, meaning that he's just talking mess at the door, but he's not really, trying to approach me. So I take out my taser and I tell him, okay, look, we ain't fighting. You take one step towards me, and you're gonna get tased. And
it's gonna be bad.
And no matter how drunk, he was completely drunk, but he understood that because he kept his distance. And I stayed there. I stayed where I was. I didn't retreat. I just stayed. I waited for my backup to come. Whereas I think if a male officer were there, they may have, I'm gonna say, the majority of them would have gone hands-on to try to control the situation a little bit quicker. Neither one is right or wrong, but for me, and I think women, we just have a little bit more patience when it comes to, things of that nature. And so, I talked a little mess. I was like, okay, when my friends come.
Hey, wait till my boys show up.
Wait till my friends come.
Wait till my friends
they going hands-on.
You gonna act like that. Wait till they get here. Well, so the reason I bring those up is because, sometimes it's not that obvious. And I think sometimes people of the community that aren't, versed in police work, they automatically think that the level of force that you and I may use has to be the same, or our mindset should be the same. And every single one of us as human beings are all naturally going to have different ways that we think about things. I can't, even with AJ, even with us being, men and stuff like that, the way he's going to think about something is different than the way I'm going to think. We all have different ways that we perceive threats. So you cannot classify, perceiving a threat in one same, it's not linear. The way AJ may perceive a threat, a lot differently than I'm gonna perceive a threat. Where I grew up at, there was times where, I was exposed to certain things where, whether it be shooting, I hope my mom ain't listen to this, but, shooting at graduation parties. I remember we had a guy walking down the street one time just shooting just at random, and we ran on campus. And so I was around that stuff growing up. And so now as a police officer, my level of my threat meter is maybe a little bit higher because I kind of I've been in a few fights. I can see when I'm getting a fight. And so to somebody else, they may look like and be like, oh man, like this fool is not even tripping. Whereas another officer that's never been in something like that or has been very minimal, his threat meter goes maybe way up.
More,
exactly. But is it necessarily wrong? You can't necessarily. It's wrong because we're all perceive things.
It's all perception.
It's all perception. And that's what the community needs to know is like, they want to hold this linear standard across the board and say, no, like this officer, perceived a threat. It just doesn't work like that. And so I want to give some advice to our officers out there and just think about this, just chew on this. I've been talking a lot about this lately. Recently, I've been criticized about, not a lot, but just a little bit about how we shouldn't be cussing as officers. And I never said we should never cuss at people. Like I've told you, I've cussed a couple times in my job. It just happens. You know what I mean? My threat level when I cuss, usually when I cuss, is because my threshold gets to that point where I feel like I'm back in the neighborhood and something's really about to go down. So, but it's not all the time. And so there were some officers that confuse that with, oh, why is he saying we shouldn't cuss and blah 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 blah. But this is what I'm getting at. So I broke down the Alton Sterling video, and when those officers, when you see the video, you see the officers get out of the car and they start confronting him, and immediately they're like, put your hands on the hood or I'm gonna effing put a bullet in your head. And they say this multiple times. Multiple times. And then shortly after, we know, if you watch the video, Alton Sterling ends up getting shot 6 times. Now, I gave the whole breakdown. I talked about why that video was justified. I talked about how they did, investigation after investigation, how they brought civil rights activists into this investigation, and they all even deemed it to be a rightful use of force. But here's what I want to get to is that if you're just a civilian watching that video and you hear these officers say, I'm gonna put an effing bullet in your head multiple times, and tell him, multiple times, I'm gonna put an effing bullet in your head, it makes it seem like those officers showed up with the intention to kill this dude off top. Even though that was probably not even their intentions. Right. Who knows? These guys probably knew Alton. Who knows? They probably knew Alton had like a rap sheet, or, we call him a frequent flyer. Like, they may know all of that stuff, and they know in their head, like, no, this dude is a serious dude. But when you're looking at it perceptually as a civilian and you show up and that's what you're saying out of your mouth, it's going to probably be perceived that you showed up with the intention to kill this dude. And so all I'm saying is, I guess my advice would be, we're living in a day and age that even now the words that come out of our mouth are being critiqued and being scrutinized. So be careful. Just like today, I knew when that girl was tripping, I knew we had some people out there looking around. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be cautious of that. And you may not like it. You may think that, this job just sucks now because now I can't even, say what I want to say. But you got to be very cautious of who's watching, because perception is everything. And so would you guys agree with that? Or do you guys have anything to add to that?
Yeah, if I could, I'm sorry. Can I
go ahead, LT.
Okay, all right, sorry.
She's the LT. Let her go first. Stand down.
Go ahead, LT.
Stand down.
So, when I was a sergeant, we would have to review some of the recordings from use of forces. And when that gets turned over, to be honest, the cursing sounds unprofessional, and it sometimes is offensive to people who don't curse. And so when they look at that, but then there's another thing that they don't take into account. Some people curse because they're scared. And so people forget officers get scared. Mm-hmm. And if they're rising to the level of using profanity, it's probably because they're scared. And they want to get your attention to let you know that, okay, I'm not playing games anymore. And me, using just my everyday language, or even raising my voice to get you to comply. So now I have to, throw in a curse word to get your attention, to let you know that, okay, I'm being serious. And unfortunately, you have to use that language, in certain situations. But at the end of the day, it still sounds unprofessional when you're listening to the recordings, especially if it goes as far as, going to a jury or having, someone else hear it. It really does sound horrible when you can use other words, but.
And we have to remember, just like if we got an officer involved shooting, just like we're accountable for every bullet that comes out of our gun, we got to remember that we're just as accountable for every curse word that comes out of our mouth.
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you, LT, on that, because like I said, I've cussed before, and usually I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm Superman. I don't never get scared. There have been some hair raised situations that I've gotten in, and naturally I was like, oh shoot, like, and that it kind of just came out. And then it's funny because people on the street, they know me as being a pretty cool, calm, and collected guy. And when that actually comes out, they're like, "Oh
they
shoot!"
Go,
like I didn't even know
serious.
you. Yeah, like
okay,
that fool is serious right now. So
absolutely.
you need to get in shape. So sometimes it naturally comes out, but just remember, just because it naturally comes out does not make me not accountable to it. I'm still accountable for it.
Still accountable.
What were you gonna say, AJ?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, actually it was like a year and a half ago, me and 3 of my coworkers, we respond to like a domestic violence. We end up having to arrest the male half in this situation, and he knew he was going to jail, right? He already knew by like the officer's actions, like their body demeanors, he knew he was going to jail. He even said it. He's like, oh, I know I'm going to jail, but you're going to fight me, right? So officer comes behind him, puts handcuffs on him. He hawks a loogie, right? He goes. One of our least senior officers goes, "Hey, if you spit on me, I'm gonna punch you in the face as hard as I can." The guy didn't end up spitting, but his windows were open, his back door was open, and a neighbor was recording it with her cell phone. So afterwards, she came up to us, and she was like, "Hey, I really don't like the way that you talked to him during the arrest. You said if he spits on you, you were gonna punch him in his effing face," is what he said. And she asked for her name and badge numbers, which we supplied it, but what people have to understand is that wasn't a threat, right? Like that was the officer telling him like, "Hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is what I am going to do to you." And it worked, right? So I would say that sometimes like you have to let people know like, "Hey, I'm serious right now. Like if you do this is what I'm gonna do to you. So think twice before you do that," right? And you could tell he thought about it like, "Oh, okay, that was specific. You said you was gonna sock me in my face. Like, let me swallow my spit then, right?" And that was like a year and a half ago. So,
and you got to think too, like
it's a double-edged sword.
You got to think too, like that's some language that people only understand. Like if you grow up in the neighborhood and all your homeboys is part of the gangs and this and that, and so you got to, and me kind of being able to adapt to my environment. That's one of the reasons why I cherish being able to grow up where I grew up, because it gave me life experience and street experience. There's certain people that understand a certain language. You know what I mean? So you can't, "Hey, sir, can you do me a favor and put your hands down where I can see them?" Some people, it don't work like that, because that in their mind, they're like, "Oh, I can get over on this officer.
Easy, right.
This is a rookie."
Right.
So,
right.
And that's
what I was going to say is.
Yep. Go ahead.
I've had officers who have come from like the suburbs or like a rural area say the same thing that I've said to somebody, but it's had a different effect because they said it slightly differently, right? Like if I say I'm gonna do something that comes off a little bit different than
like he's serious
when this officer says it, right?
Like, and
that just has to do with like the area. Right. But it's because I talk the talk because I'm from a very similar area, right? So you're absolutely right. Like you have to talk the language in the area in which you patrol, but you could be professional. You don't got that. Don't mean you gotta go out cussing everybody out. Or
you should, and we should be leading with professionalism majority of the time. Like I work, a lot. Majority of my days, I can be professional probably about 95 to 98% of the time. It's not like I'm going around just cussing folks out. So if you're one of those officers that's just doing that, I would, maybe check yourself. But civilians, I also want you guys as civilians, I need you to recognize though is that you got to realize that every officer is different, every situation is different. So again, when you watch videos, get the full context. That's why I always tell people, get as much context as you can before you start making some judgment calls, because when you make those judgment calls, it could be detrimental. So I'm sorry, I had to go on. I was on a tangent, guys. I really want to get to some other things before. Billy, where are we at on time? I want to make sure we don't.
We're 49 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to jump right into this. Lieutenant, so we've had a lot of females come to us and say, "Hey, look, it's different being a female in this profession. They need some motivation either to get to the next level, become an officer, or they need encouragement because they found it, it's harder, unfortunately, they feel at least, to, whether it be promote, get special assignments." And so has there been any type of adversity that you faced as a female, whether it be indirectly, directly, or, as you promoted up? And if so, what would be some encouragement or some motivation that you can give some of the women out there that listen to our podcast?
And yes, there have been. But I just want to start with by stating that just stay authentic. Be who you are. If you are a, typical girly girl, then that's who you are. If you're more, of the sport athletic and, then just be yourself. But with that, you can expect to be perceived differently from whether it's your coworkers or your supervisors. So here we go with another anecdote.
I love it. Let's do it.
So I was in this one position, and I speak my mind when whatever I feel I say, and it's gotten me into a little bit, I won't say trouble, just maybe I didn't get promoted when I should have, or I didn't get that specific assignment, because I like to think that I speak the truth because it's my truth. But this one supervisor didn't appreciate my truth. So I got, let's just say, transferred from my assignment. That was really nice. And but from that transfer, it motivated me to go to patrol. So I was content staying in the custody realm up until I retired. I was happy. I didn't need to, I didn't feel the need to go to patrol and, do all the patrol functions to get promoted because I was content. But this particular supervisor, once he didn't appreciate my personality and I got transferred, it caused me to kind of reflect on what I wanted to do for myself. And, and I've always been a mentor. I've always, talked to women. But to be honest, looking back, I don't think I was the best mentor because I was content staying in my comfortable bubble. But once I got transferred, I realized, okay, well, I can't do this anymore. I didn't want to, hand out toilet paper and do all that, which is fine, for some people. But just for me at that stage, I knew I had to go to patrol to get promoted. So, but I say that to say me being forced out of one situation and not knowing what it was going to lead to, I was very angry and upset at that particular supervisor. And I knew that supervisor did not care for women in law enforcement. So it had nothing to do with my race. He just did not appreciate women being in law enforcement. And so I became his little pet project. But when I see him, I'm going to thank him because of the way he treated me and got me transferred, led me to patrol and to getting promoted and to being in the position that I am now. So had he not, treated me that way back then I would still be, probably back in the jails doing, what I was doing back then.
Wow. So I want to touch on something with that is that's a great example of when something negative happens to you, oftentimes it's like so easy to just say, man, it sucks. Why me? This is ridiculous. It's not fair. And as a minority as well. And I hate to say, I'm going to get on this, soapbox just for a minute. Because it's not just minorities that are also being critiqued in law enforcement anymore. Like, if you think about it, white officers have become a minority in a sense. And so there's two things I want to touch on real quick. The first one is I do believe as being a minority in law enforcement it is difficult. And the reason I say it's difficult is because historically there have been racist things that have happened in our profession that have prevented minorities from whether it be getting the job, getting promoted, or having to, kind of morph who you are as a person, to do this job. And so we've battled against that. And I think, as time goes on, it's actually in the constant evolvement of where we're going as a profession, it's getting better because you're seeing more minorities get into the profession. I think that is so valuable, and there's nothing more valuable than little kids that are minorities that can see themselves in officers that patrol their streets. Now, I do say we shouldn't sacrifice standards for just to hire a minority.
Absolutely
And
not.
unfortunately, sometimes, we get in the habit of doing that as law enforcement agencies, is we hire people just for the sake of hiring because they're a minority. We can't sacrifice standards. I've talked about it before, is
Right.
we needed to maintain a high level of professionalism in this job in order to overcome a lot of that adversity. But going
Right.
back to why I say I believe some white officers are becoming minorities is because I've gone on plenty of calls now where we deal with minorities, and then I have some officers, some partners that are some real cool cats, like really good people. And when we're dealing with, a person of color or somebody, immediately they're like, "Oh, you here to shoot me? Oh, you here to, you here to take my life?" And it's not actually fair to them because they're like, "Shoot, man, like, it's not even like that. Like, dog, I'm not even like that."
Right.
And so
Yeah.
we're in an interesting time right now because, everybody's kind of facing criticism. And so,
Yeah.
AJ, I know you probably got something to say on that. And what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'll just say in general, because I'm very, very, very light skinned, I will have people comment on my videos all the time. Like,
Hey, you white?
right. But they'll say, make comments like, well, why did this white officer do this? Or look at this white officer doing this in the black community. It's like,
I gotta say,
ooh.
I'm when I first saw your video, I have seen your video. I'm not a creeper or anything, but
She was like, "Hey, that's
I was
Odo
like,
Nah,
hey,
Papa.
I
Hey."
seen him, and I was like, oh, that white boy can dance.
yeah.
him.
But
Got
so
him.
that's like that's the funny thing about it is some people say it's good, but some people say it's bad, right? So on one hand, you'll have people go like, "Man, look at this white boy go," which, all right, whatever. I'll be white today, whatever. But then on the other hand, when use of force of mine happens, people go, "Well, why this white officer punch this black person, or why this white officer do this to this black person?" It's like maybe race doesn't really play into this action, right, or whatever this video was. So yeah, Ryan, I would have to agree with you, man. Like, we're in very weird or different times right now, and I have coworkers, like I said, who come from suburbia or like farm town, like super farm town Ohio, right? And they work the inner city. They work the inner city for the right reasons, but they're not given the time of day, right? Like, they get out of their car to play curveball or basketball with a kid, and the kids are like, "Nah, get away from me. Like, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say." So yeah, you're absolutely right, man. It's this weird juggling act where you're like, hey, is racism alive? Absolutely. Absolutely, racism is alive. But on the other hand, you're like, man, like, there are white Americans who are facing issues as well now. So
Now, let me I have
very weird times.
I have one last question for both of you. So I'll ask your question first, AJ. In light of your recent use of force that you've had, you and I have had some personal talks, personal conversations.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I know that, our viewers and listeners won't know, and there's no need to.
Right.
But
Right.
you've invested so much into the community, bro. Like it's unreal how much AJ's invested into the community. In light of your recent use of force, has your mindset changed at all in regards to, being a police officer? And if so, how? And has it discouraged you or motivated you to do what we do? And obviously, we're going back to the what we brought up earlier is transparency is key. So, be transparent, because a lot of our viewers and listeners, man, they follow you. And so I want them to know your heart like you. And I know for you guys that don't know, man, my man has gone through some stuff. So if you guys have been praying for him, continue to pray for him. But what's your head like these days with that?
So first and foremost, I'll say this. I still am and always will be good in the area I work, because I am the community. The streets I patrol, still love me. They still come up to my cruiser, kids, adults, like every age. If anything, this incident showed me how much support I have from my community, because they're going above and beyond to reach out to show that support. With that said, I'm from the school of thought of when something happens, when times gets hard, you get harder, right? So my mindset is, okay, like, you're trying to throw dirt on my name, gonna amp it up, right? Like I'm gonna magnify this. I'm gonna really blow it up. Like I post 1 video a day, and I make sure I mentor 2 kids a day. I'm gonna bump it up to 4 kids a day and 2 videos a day, right? I'm gonna make sure I'm plugging the churches in with the community now, right? But I also would be a lie if I told you I'm not considering different ways to impact the community. We have a rough, I mean, I'll be 100% transparent, man. We have a hard job in general, right? If you come to work and you do your job for 8 hours a day, nothing extra, we have one of the hardest jobs in the world. When you add in the fact that you're passionate about your job and you pour your heart and soul into your job, and you do things outside of your 9 to 5, like this podcast and like the consulting that's law enforcement related, it makes it that much more harder. And when something like this happens, it makes that blow that hurt that much more. So I would be a lie if I haven't considered like other options. But I do know that no matter what I do, it'll be for the community. It'll be for making God's kingdom fuller, and just bringing more people to Jesus. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
My man.
Do I see me always having ties with law enforcement? Absolutely. But I'd be a lie if I didn't say I didn't consider like other options.
My man. So
and the amen goes right there.
Amen. And the Lord said, amen. Thanks for that. And the last question for you, Miss Williams. For all of our women that are out there listening to this podcast, there's a lot of women that want to get into law enforcement. You've done a lot of work when it comes to recruiting and mentorship.
Yes.
What is something that you would say to them to encourage them? And 2, what could they do to prepare for some of their tests that they have coming up, whether it be the PAT, oral interview? What are some things that they should either, mention or be abreast to as a female trying to get into this predominantly male profession?
What I would say is, just like I said earlier, just be yourself, but it won't hurt to do push-ups. Lots of push-ups.
Guess what?
When I first, when I knew I was going through the academy, that's all I did. Commercials, watch TV, did push-ups because I wanted to be mentally prepared for this career. So when you're mentally prepared and you're physically prepared, this job actually, it becomes easier to deal with, especially when you're going through the academy. So if you have someone that's trying to, prepare to get into this line of work, then I would say prepare yourself mentally and physically, meaning running, eating right, learning how to talk to people. So if you have siblings or your friends, because a lot of the new age, all they do is text. And and my daughter's probably going to kill me for this, but she's dating an older guy.
We need to meet him.
I know.
We need to meet him.
I'm putting all her business out.
He needs to be. He need to be on the podcast.
He's nice though. He
need to be on the podcast so we can vet him. We need to vet him.
No, he's nice. But she did say when they were first getting to know each other, she's like, ugh. He wants to talk on the phone, and why can't I keep texting him, but he doesn't want to text. He wants to talk.
That's how I am.
and so if you are looking to get into law enforcement, put your cell phone down, stop the texting and tweeting, and learn to actually converse with people, because that is the main portion of your job when you're in law enforcement. That you have to learn how to talk to people and be comfortable with it.
Okay, I like that.
That's good advice. That's good, real good advice.
Oh man,
and my daughter's gonna kill me.
Oh yeah, make sure she tunes in. Drop us that 5-star review. And I do gotta say, I'm kind of salty. We had a 5. Man, this is fair or foul. I mean, we got a good streak going on, and so if you don't know, Ms. Williams, we do a fair or foul. And so I got 2 fair or fouls. So do you got a fair or foul today?
That's all you, brother.
Okay,
all
so
you.
I got 2. So the first fair or foul is we got like 5-star ratings on our podcast. We downloaded all across how many countries, Billy? Like 11, 12, something like that. And so somebody gave us a 4-star. They said everything was good, but I think they can do without the religion part. I'm like, come on, dog. Like, Oh, like he was like, I'm not a religious guy. I understand. Yeah, everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but last I checked, this was our podcast, so I'm entitled to say what I want to say.
I take Jesus everywhere.
And you gonna have to deal with that.
You know what I mean? So did we really need the 4-star? We couldn't get the 5-star. It's all good. So I'm gonna say foul on that one. This next one. So if you guys know, I'm an adamant golfer. I love golfing. This is actually this has happened a couple of weeks ago. So. Fair or foul. So I'm at the golf store. I'm at the golf course, about to get ready to golf. And every now and again, I got to go buy some new golf balls from the store. And so, I go to buy some balls. But when I'm in there, I ask, hey, how much, are these golf balls? And usually I like to get the Titleist or whatever. And so I asked this guy. They didn't have Titleist this day. For whatever reason, they didn't have them in the shop. So I picked up some. I think there were some Wilson balls or whatever. So I asked the guy at the shop, like, hey, my man, like, how much are these golf balls right here? He's like, oh, man, those are expensive. And I'm like, dog, I didn't ask. I'm like, dog, I didn't ask, like, whether or not they were expensive or cheap. I just asked, can you give me a price? He's like, hey, no, those are kind of expensive. I'm like, bruh, like what you trying to say? Like, I can't afford them. I can't afford them. So I was low key salty every single time I hit that ball that day, because I'm like, when I lost one, my man was like, hey man, that's kind of expensive for you. You can't afford another one. I was like salty the whole day about it. So I almost went in there in spite of him and just bought like 10 packages of them. Like, hey, yeah, let me get 10 of the old expensive golf balls, bro. So fair or foul, bro. Did I take that? Did I take that too personal, bro? Or was I right in getting up in my feelings?
I think it depends on if he listens to the podcast or not. Because if he knows where you took the team for dinner that day, then he might know at times.
Hey, she was a part of that. She was a part of that whole Panda Express fiasco. I don't know, but she's been to Panda Inn. So let me ask you, Ms. Williams, when I told you that we was going to Panda Inn, you didn't think I was taking you out of Panda Express?
Oh, of course not.
Okay, let me just throw that out there. Because she was there, because apparently the rest of the team thought I was taking them to Panda Express. I'm still calling foul on that one. I said it was foul that they thought my team thought I was taking them to Panda Express to get some orange chicken.
Panda Inn.
Yes, thank you, y'all. So,
fair. You definitely supposed to be your feelings. I do have a fair or foul though, but I'm gonna let LT answer that fair or foul first.
Go ahead.
Answer Ryan's.
Fair or foul that my team thought that I was taking them to Panda Express instead of Panda Inn. Is that fair that they thought that, or is that foul that they thought I was taking them to Panda Express?
Well, it's probably fair because but
I gotta hear that.
But let me tell you why.
Go ahead.
So, we were taking someone out to dinner that's not from here. He's from New York, and I was like, oh, well, we'll take you to Panda Inn, and he was like, okay. I guess we go.
Oh, y'all splurging.
And he actually thought it was Panda Express because he wasn't familiar with Panda Inn. So if people aren't familiar with it, then they just assume that they only know Panda Express, the fast food joint. But in SoCal, we do it upscale. We have a Panda Inn.
Here's why I still call it foul. This is why I still call it foul, because you can't live up the street from Panda Inn and not know there's a Panda Inn there. Like,
okay, that's true.
He came from New York, so
yes.
There's still no excuse. You live up the street from Panda Inn. So I'm still calling foul. I'm still salty about that. If y'all
he mad about that. He raising his voice on that one.
My bad. My wife was here. She was like, calm down. See, y'all starting to see the side of Ryan that folks be getting on the street. My bad. Let me digress while I'm over here talking about cops raising their voice. But go ahead about your fair foul and we'll wrap it up.
All right. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible for time's sake. So a couple of my coworkers hit me up and they're like, AJ, we gonna take you camping this weekend. So this was just this past weekend, all right? So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm a city boy, but I'm tough. I can go camping, right? She's like, we're going to West Virginia, like in the mountains camping. We're gonna ride 4-wheelers. We're gonna like shoot guns and all of that. We're gonna like cook our own food over a fire and all of that. So I'm like, bet, like I got this, right? So my buddy has 3 4-wheelers. We haul them all the way to West Virginia. We get there. His uncle owns 225 acres.
My
In front of his house are 2 mountains. He's like, I own that mountain and that mountain.
That's crazy.
He's like, where you literally, he's pointing out, like, that one and that one. I own 50 acres behind me. He goes, you guys will be staying on top of this mountain. There's no electricity, no running water, but there's like a building up there where you can put your sleeping bags in and whatnot.
That sounds like something the Williams have. The Williams got their own mountain. They got Mount Rushmore. They got Mount Rushmore.
Crazy.
My bad.
So
go ahead.
He goes, the only way No, you good, you good. So he goes, the only way up there is to ride a four-wheeler. You can't drive up this mountain. He goes, I'm going to go up first and clear the path for you, right? So he goes up there. We're loading our four-wheelers up, okay? Keep in mind, I've never ridden a four-wheeler a day in my life, except for one time in a circle in the backyard, all right? So they're like, all right, AJ, this is your four-wheeler. You're going to take this one. So I'm like, all right, boom, get on the four-wheeler. There's a big cooler full of like water on the front, a bunch of stuff on the back. So we start going up this trail. And I'm nervous, right? Because to the right is death. Like, it's like a cliff. If you fall, it's all bad, right? To the left is okay. There's a bunch of trees. So we going up and we going up and we going up and we get to this part where it's nothing but mud and big chunky rocks, right? Mm-hmm. So my buddy goes up it and he's on like this real sweet four-wheeler, and this is like his uncle, so he's like been up this path before. He starts struggling. So it's a manual four-wheeler. I'm in second gear, all right? So I'm like, I got it. So I kind of lean forward, hit the gas. The four-wheeler stops, all right? On the steepest part, right above this big rock, all right? Keep in mind, to the right is death, to the left is safe, all right? So I'm like, all right, what do? I got the gas all the way down, the four-wheeler ain't moving. So I look back at my homeboy and I go, hey, should I kick it in the third? And he's like, no. He goes, put it in the first. So I'm like, all right. So I'm like, if I let go of the gas, I'm going to slide back, I'm going to hit this rock, it's going to be bad, right? So I'm like, I'm going to let go a little bit, switch it in the first, give it some gas. Man, I switched this thing in the first gear. It did a backflip. Boom. Cooler hit me in the face. Boom. I got a big scratch up my leg. I had to kick the four-wheeler, all right, because I didn't want to roll down this cliff and die, all right. I had blood pouring down my leg. It was all bad. So we ended up tilting the four-wheeler back because it was like leaking gas, getting it restarted. We had to like pull it up that like real steep part, whatever. We ended up getting to the top, and his uncle's up top, and he's like looking at me. He's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And he goes, "Hey, Eric," that's our buddy whose nephew, whatever. He goes, "Hey, Eric." He's like, "Yeah, Uncle, what's up?" And he goes, "Why'd you put AJ on the two-wheel drive four-wheeler?" And I'm like,
"Oh, played you." Hey, so my man was on the Cadillac while you were on the Honda Civic.
Not only was I on the Cadillac, bro, but I was on the smallest four-wheeler. I'm like, oh, you set me up. You tried to kill me, bro. So, fair or foul, man. They tried to take me out this past weekend.
I'm going to say fair, bro. You should have been up to speed on your four-wheelers, bro. I'm just saying, if it was me, I would have Googled something. It's funny. I would have put it in there. I would have put it in Google. Best type of four-wheelers and see what Google had to say about that.
Man, what's funny about that is Eric kind of said that, like, "Oh, I thought you knew," like it's common knowledge. I'm like I thought all four-wheelers were four-wheel drive. Like I thought that's why they called them four-wheelers. Like I didn't.
Oh man, hey, we can all agree that AJ doesn't do good in the outdoors. My man almost drowned with the sharks.
Go glamping.
Yeah. I'm all about that glamping. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Hey man, it was a great pot. Any closing remarks as we wrap this up? Anybody?
Thank you for having me, and hopefully we get a 5.
Oh yeah, exactly. Whoever gave us that 4, man, I'm gonna need you to go on there and change that thing to a 5. Hey, lastly, this podcast is being brought to you by the one and only Breaking Barriers United. So shout out to all of our team for all the work that we've all been putting in to make this podcast go. And check it out, guys. We are officially like 16 days away from the first annual It's Needed conference. So we got tickets. Tickets are going. It's been crazy. We had police departments buying 21 last week. Just a lot of tickets at a time. I already got ET confirmed. He's coming out. I bought his plane ticket, and I'm a little. I was sweating when I had to press okay on that one.
Absolutely.
First class.
Absolutely.
But no, he deserves it. I've already talked to Gordon Graham, so it is going to be a phenomenal. So be there or be square. If you want to come to this conference and you get on that website, you say, hey, look, this is too expensive. I can't make it. Shoot me a DM. I will make it happen to where you're at that conference. I trust me on that one. I will make it happen. So let's just say it like this. Price is not an issue. Let me know. Hit me up in my DM if you really want to go. Price will not be an issue. I'll make sure you guys are there and in attendance with us to meet me, AJ, Mrs. Williams, and everybody. So it's coming up fast. I can't wait. I'm actually speaking tomorrow for a group home, some group home kids. So I'll be speaking tomorrow at 10:30. So I'm looking forward to that. And so things are rolling, guys. I'm excited, man. Thank you guys so much for being on this podcast. It's like therapy every single time I get back on here. So little motivation, whatever you guys are doing. If you guys are down and out, if you guys need some help, stay with whatever you guys are doing. Like Mrs. Williams said it earlier, sometimes you find your biggest strength in adversity, and sometimes your biggest blessings come through adversity. So make sure you push through it, be strong, get through it, and we'll see you guys all at the top. Thanks again. God bless, and we'll see y'all next week.
See ya.
Peace.